What up? It's your boy T-Bone Reaction. Today's Music Monday. I'm about to cap it off, possibly, and I'm gonna cap it off with returning to react to Digging the Greats from say his name right, Brandon, and this is based off one of the most iconic coast classics from the most iconic hip hop trio of all time, the Beastie Boys, and that is one of the most very heavily sampled album of them all, as well too, as I reacted to their sample edition from 8 Minutes Upside Down and Up, and this none other than the iconic sophomore album Paul Boutiques as well too. The sample is crazy, so now I'm gonna get the little story behind this album from one and only Brandon Shaw. Let's get it.
Three guys who made a name for themselves as raucous party punks managed to make an album that would not only eventually redefine what a hip-hop album could sound like, but in the moment garner so little attention that the label picked Donny Osmond over them. Today, we're diving into the Beastie Boys' sophomore album, Paul's Boutique. We're going to get into the samples, the production, the story behind this album, and the unexpected ways this album changed hip-hop forever. Welcome back to Digging the Greats. We are in week 2 of Camp Diggs, the summer series where we dive into a different classic album every week for 6 weeks. If you are not already signed up for Camp Diggs, head to patreon.com/diggingthegreats to sign up completely free. There are activities all week related to the album of the week, from the playlist to the camp chat room, the campfire live stream with food and drink at the end of the week. We've all been listening to this album all week, and it's been a blast. Again, patreon.com.
So I'm wondering when was the week before this one? Let's see. Chocolate Quest first album. Okay, I gotta check that out then. All right. I know he did one about the illegal Beatles hip hop album. I'm gonna do that another time. But I gotta check out that Chocolate Quest one, and they can do one with a classic Stevie Wonder album. I gotta check it out when chance too. Anyway, let's keep going.
.com/diggingthegreats. Go sign up. This is the best summer camp you'll ever go to. Last week was 90s week, and the album we dove into was People's Instinctive Travels in the Paths of Rhythm by A Tribe Called Quest. But this week is 80s week, so we're getting into Paul's Boutique by the Beastie Boys. Did I grab that the right way? I did! Oh, perfect! I'm just grabbing them blindly, and you know what? When I get it...
He's doing different weeks, though, so we're going to check it. So I'm going to check out the other weeks he will, too, with the other ones. I'm going to go back to and check out the first one he did, so yeah.
It's good, man. Anyway, Paul's Boutique was released in July of 1989, and Tribe's debut is less than a year later, in April of 1990. So even though it's 80s week or 90s week, these two albums are fairly close together. However, they are very different, as you'll see today. Well, I mean, you've been listening to the album all week. You have ears. You already knew that. But while People's Instinctive Travels was a big hit, launching Tribe into one of the most incredible album runs in history, Paul's Boutique, well, let me put it this way. The Beastie Boys are Vincent van Gogh, and Paul's Boutique is their Starry Night. This is a pretty solid metaphor for a bunch of reasons you're about to see, but it's not one-to-one. Mainly because, just let's briefly talk about the Beastie Boys' beginnings. Mike Diamond, aka Mike D, Adam Horovitz, aka Ad Rock, and Adam Yauch, aka MCA, began their music careers at a young age in the early 80s, forming a hardcore punk band, playing instruments, singing, and screaming. But as hip-hop began to spread and take over, and groups like Run DMC exploded, the Beastie Boys fell in love with it and began incorporating rap and other hip-hop elements into their sound. Just to get us in the context of the time we're talking about, here's a bit of the song It's Tricky by Run DMC, produced by Rick Rubin, released in 1986.
It's tricky to rock around, that's right, on time is tricky.
So we got those gang vocals on the hook, there's some back and forth between MCs, a few words here and there with extra shouts to sort of punctuate it, but there's energy here too. It just feels like you're trying to get a big group of people moving. Like they don't have a particularly smooth flow, it's bigger energy than that. Part of that is Run DMC, and part of that is just the style of hip-hop in the mid-80s. So then the Beastie Boys meet Rick Rubin. He produces their first album, Licensed to Ill, which was released on Def Jam also in 1986. But the Beastie Boys sound is not only a little more of its time in the 80s, by that I mean similar to Run DMC, but they're also bringing in their punk roots. Their rap style is even more shouty, more brash and in your face. And lyrically, I mean, they're 20-year-old punks. It's a lot of immature themes, a lot of partying, the kind of stuff that would excite 20-year-olds and make their parents mad. So here's a little bit of the song that is not only the biggest single from their first album, it's their highest charting single ever, Fight for Your Right.
You wake up late for school, man, you don't wanna go.
Now, I know right now you
Pull my thing out. Let's go back. Sorry.
might be like, I thought we were talking about Paul's Boutique, not Licensed to Ill, and we are. I just need you to know where the Beastie Boys are starting, which is to
You gotta start from the beginning, pretty much.
say this big 80s Def Jam style Fight for Your Right. It's this big rock and punk influenced sound, and this song and this album were absolutely massive. The album went to #1, they toured and made a ton of money, but they also upset a lot of more conservative people because here's these like 20-year-old kids screaming vulgar lyrics, partying hard, and presumably, I don't know, being a bad influence on the youth of America. So remember that Vincent van Gogh comparison? This is not that. The Beastie Boys were huge stars. You either loved them or you hated them, but they were on top of the world regardless. But then they got, well, tired. After returning from tour, the group took a short break. Ad Rock made his way out to LA, and MCA sort of unofficially quit the band, mainly because he was tired of doing the party boy thing and wanted to head in a different direction.
Okay.
You know who didn't want to head in a different direction though? Def Jam.
Def Jam.
They wanted License to Ill Part 2. They wanted Fight for Your Right Part 2. If it ain't broke, don't...
And that's why we had the song Desperado and a couple other songs too that didn't get released. Was the official version of Desperado, not these remake and modern remake versions, but the official version from the Tough in the Letter album. The soundtrack plays I Wish.
fix it, right? Well, as the boys were on an extended break, maybe in order to get them moving again, Def Jam began withholding royalties from their first album. One thing led to another, the Beastie Boys left Def Jam and signed with Capitol Records, who also assumed they had just gotten an incredible deal, snagging the Fight for Your Right guys. They were gonna get that License to Ill Part 2. But then, well, Ad Rock met a few people out in LA, who I'll talk about in a second. He insisted that Mike D and MCA join him on the West Coast, and the resulting album, Paul's Boutique, would become, the Starry Night to their Van Gogh. But before we dive back into that metaphor, the guys that Ad Rock met were a DJ named Matt Dyke, as well as John King and Mike Simpson, aka the Dust Brothers. They became legendary after this album and went on to make some other music that you may or may not know. One of them is a big surprise, but the way this album was produced is one of the reasons Paul's Boutique is so legendary. So now let's talk production. Throughout the 80s, hip-hop producers are starting to incorporate more samples, and the 808 drum machine is an ever-present force. But as sampling becomes more of a popular thing to do, the challenge becomes standing out, like finding samples that haven't been used before, and then layering them in new ways. So while License to Ill has samples on it, absolutely, it doesn't hold a candle to Paul's Boutique, which is...
I don't know what you're going to say or not, but the numerous of samples in that album, I like I say, on Paul's Boutique.
Is made up almost entirely of samples, with the estimate being up to 300 samples on the album. And now I say up to because not only have not all the samples been found, the Dust Brothers themselves don't even remember what is all layered in there.
I bet! Out of 300 samples, I bet they wouldn't remember. That's a lot to remember, to be honest.
This has made Paul's Boutique simultaneously an incredible feat of sampling and also a puzzle to unlock for people who love finding samples. So now let's get into the album. Here it is right here, and you're probably familiar with the cover, but unless you have a physical copy of this, you wouldn't necessarily know this. Let's unfold it, right? And then I'm not even gonna be able to get it all on the top camera. Let's unfold it again. Front camera, can we do it? Hey! That is a picture that MCA Adam Yauch took with a 360 camera in 1989. Like now we have 360 cameras, but this was like a crazy 360 film camera. And this is a 360 shot of the street right there. We got the same thing here on the inside. Oh my God, okay. In order to look at the production on this album, I've recreated the beat from the second track on Paul's Boutique, Shake Your Rump. And it is incredible seeing all the layers in here. Let's just do our best here. I'm going to sort of talk through this as it goes, and I'll see you at the end. First up, we have a drum fill into a different drum groove. Right? There's that. We're looping that. We got some guitar. Drums coming in and out. Another one right here. Different drum groove.
I hate broken down everything like that. That's pretty cool.
Here we go, right here.
It's the joint.
Right, here's our bass. Come on, man. There are so many different intricate layers in there.
Right.
It's jumping all around. That's nuts. And let me just show you this drum.
And think about it. Unless they did use electronic, if not, this was all analog. Was no computer, nothing, all analog. Can you imagine doing that without no screen and nothing like that? Unless they did use computer screen in case not reviews, one of them, unless they did have access to like earlier renditions of one of the softwares as well too. Still, wow.
Drum fill, this last one, that is taken from this recording right here. Let's solo this. That right there.
Peace.
Right? That's slowed down, that's compressed, and we get... Come on! We got multiple drums grooves. We got layered stuff in there. We got lyric samples.
It's the joint.
We got bass, right? Come on! Even this.
Yeah.
The sampling on here is on another level. There's so many different samples from different genres combining. The style of sampling, it just makes it feel like we're taking a tour through a record store, jumping between records constantly. But it's funkier, it's more soulful, but then also we got like that guitar line that feels very Beastie Boys, very rock, a little bit of punk, especially their vocals on top, which we're not even hearing right now because that's just my recreation. But you add their vocals on top, this is like the next evolutionary step for the Beastie Boys. And this sampling style was absolutely intentional. As Matt Dyke recalled, I remember having this discussion with Yauch, him saying, let's go completely over the top and sample everything. Let's make this the nail in the coffin for sampling. Let's take another quick look at another great song from this album, Eggman.
I looked out the window, seen this bullhead, ran through the fridge and pulled out an egg.
We have the same layering of samples happening in here.
Yeah.
We have different drums over that bass line. But that bass line, do you recognize it?
Yep.
That is, of course, Superfly by Curtis Mayfield. I just think it's interesting sample-wise. Now we're starting to lean a little more towards funk and soul. But the Beastie Boys, I mean, they still sound like the Beastie Boys.
I saw the convertible driving by, loaded up the slingshot, let one fly.
You still have that shouty style on top. Also, you've got multiple layers with the different drum samples in there, all the different effects happening. Let's look at another example for production, the song Hey Ladies.
Oh, yes.
So,
That's
same
the
thing,
drum
we
right
have
there.
layers and layers and
I don't care what anybody said. That song's so underrated. Hey, ladies, just the beat sample itself, though.
layers of samples here. Yeah, let's
that down,
just play
please.
through my recreation and I'll talk through it. That goes on for a long time. Let's get to the end of that, and then we have this sort of cornucopia of samples in here.
Hey, ladies!
Okay.
And then we get into Shake Your Pants by Cameo. That's the sample right there. Again, I haven't even finished this whole thing because it is so complex. So notice, we got this, Hey Ladies.
Hey, ladies!
Then we go to this, Get Funky. And then we got the little cowbell thing. And then we have a drum fill that's up here, the Bustin' Loose drum fill again. And then we get into Shake Your Pants. So this is in the course of, 5 seconds here. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 samples. Here's the break.
Hey, ladies!
This style of sampling is incredibly innovative. There are a few songs that the Beastie Boys played a few instruments on, but for the most part, it's all samples, again estimated to be up to 300, and we just don't know for sure. But while this album has a lot more funk and soul in it, it's still the Beastie Boys. It's still got their punk influence, their shouty rapping. And again, sampling was becoming more and more popular, but while the Beastie Boys were working on this album, 2 bombshell albums were released that took a very similar sample-heavy approach.
Paul's Boutique came out, we were really excited about it. We were working on this thing that we thought was kind of new and different, and we were getting ready to put it out, and then De La Soul, 3 Feet High and Rising came out. And we're like, oh, that's what we wanted to do.
Damn.
Yeah, well, not only that, also Nation of Millions. Nation of Millions, too. Like, I remember specifically, we were sitting in the studio, and both those records came out while we were finishing up Paul's Boutique in the studio. And we heard those two, and it's like this moment where
Quick second, I'm trying to figure out the program that RZA used when he was doing the Mystery of Chess Boxing work. So I was thinking it was Pro Tools. I wonder if they had an early edition of Pro Tools or something like that. But if they did this all analog, oh my God, the Dust Brothers are some geniuses as well too. And they can't remember all the sample, but again, 300 sample and it wasn't digital. Who can remember all that? Still, man, it probably cost somewhat digital because of the sample they use, but still, it's still kind of analog how they pull them together though.
you love these records so much, and you're thrilled, and you love them, and you're completely defeated at the same time. So we felt like there's no way we were like our ideas.
And I remember I had to look up the clip from Wu-Tang about that. That's how Ghost and Ray was feeling with all the new albums like Nas and Ready to Die, Biggie, and all that's coming out. So
I'm not gonna compare.
I see Nation, 3 Feet High, and Paul's Boutique as one life-changing 3-headed monster, and I want you guys to own that. You guys paradigm shifted creativity in hip-hop.
These 3 albums, Public Enemy's It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back from 1988, De La Soul's 3 Feet High and Rising, 1989, and Paul's Boutique, again also 1989, they all took sampling to a new level, but it was right in the sweet spot of sampler technology getting better.
Especially 3 Feet High and Rising, oh yeah, sample game was crazy. I think I was like literally probably the first song I really knew about sampling. Well, I didn't know about sampling, but because at the time, I will say that these songs will put you on the song, especially from that album, like Me, Myself, and I. Growing up, if you knew about Funkadelic, you knew about Me, Myself, and I, and then you hear Funkadelic, like, oh, that came from that. Oh, that's where that song came from as well, too. Same with some of the songs from Public Enemy as well, too, though, and also Paul Boutique in a way, yeah.
But right before the big lawsuits began and sampling got more expensive to do.
Yep.
A lot of the samples on Paul's Boutique, they have said, are cleared and presumably for a very cheap price.
And it's probably also why a lot of the 80s had like overabundance. Hip hop albums 80 had overabundance abundance of samples because lawsuits wasn't pushed out yet till later on.
But many of them still just have not been found. The point is, if you were to do an album like this today, it would be tremendously expensive. That's even if you could get all the samples cleared.
Crazy.
All right, now let's talk about why this album is Starry Night, and the Beastie Boys are Van Gogh. This album was released in July of 1989, and well, it kind of flopped. It was so different from their previous album, no one knew quite what to do with it. Some people loved it right out of the gate, but for most people, it wasn't the same.
Not surprised, you know. Like I said, that they say earlier, if it ain't broken, don't fix it or don't change it. But you know, they wanted to do something different, and you know, sometimes it's a risk at first. But down the line, but at least down the line, it still became a cult classic and everything, and became one of their most iconic albums as well too, along with License to Ill, and they later on started Shake Your Head and Ill Communication, I think is probably the most iconic album out of them as well too, as for and Hell Nasty and many others as well too. So yeah.
Same Beastie Boys they heard on License to Ill. Not only did the album not sell well, the label stopped promoting it, opting instead for a big marketing push for Donny Osmond's new album. And as the Beastie Boys explained,
Donny Osmond's Want to Be Michael Jackson's Bad album.
It was incredibly disappointing.
I'll put it in basketball terms. We left it all on the floor. Like we put every idea that we had into that record, every sample, everything that we thought was funny to each other. We thought, all right, we made this record that's dope, and you know, and like we talk about in the show, put it out and it's crickets. So our experience, so mean crickets being a term for when nobody gets it and nobody's on board.
In the years since, Paul's Boutique has become a cult classic, well known as a masterpiece of sampling, and seeing the Beastie Boys and the Dust Brothers do something incredibly innovative and creative, inspiring sample-based production for years to come. But still, going back to 1989, License to Ill, their first album, was certified 4 times platinum, which means 4 million records. Paul's Boutique, by comparison, sold about 500,000 copies in 1989. They did eventually reach 1 million copies in 1995 and 2 million copies sold in 1999. But still, today, Paul's Boutique is at 2 million copies sold, and License to Ill is at 10 million. So Vincent van Gogh was a painter who is now considered one of the most famous painters of all time. Like, even if you don't know all that much about him, you probably know 2 things: that he cut off his ear and he painted Starry Night. But while Van Gogh is now heralded as an innovative painter, his paintings are worth millions, and he's studied as one of the greats. In his own lifetime, he was only able to sell a handful of paintings. No one liked him or got his paintings. And Starry Night, not only did it not sell when he was alive, he personally viewed the painting as a complete failure and hated himself for it. Yes, Starry Night, one of the most famous paintings in history. It is a very similar thing with Paul's Boutique, because when this album came out, it was mostly a flop and didn't sell during its lifetime, but would go on to be a favorite of Beastie Boys fans, hip-hop fans, and sampling fanatics for years to come. But for the Beastie Boys themselves, they still don't look back on it fondly.
It's funny to us that then years later, there's a lot of people like yourself who love it and talk about how it affected them, but then it's
their lives.
Matt and I are kind of like, we're like, well, why didn't you buy it when it came out then?
Those million people that bought that record, they changed their lives to that. Like me alone, that album like really made me want to create music. But I'm just saying that
it must have did this around the pandemic as well too, because both him and Jimmy is doing it via Skype or wherever he wanted to. They was doing it.
You guys don't give your genius for Paul's Boutique enough credit, and I want you.
We'll think about that. We'll interflect on that.
Taking it. I guess.
Paul's Boutique was released in the year 1989. Van Gogh's Starry Night, he painted in 1889. Paul's
Whoa!
Boutique showed what sampling could do. Yes,
A
along
whole 100 years later. That's crazy. Hope I said
with
my name
albums
right.
like Nation of Millions and 3 Feet High. It happened at the right place and the right time,
Wow.
combining hundreds of samples
too
together.
coincidental.
The Beastie Boys wanting to move on from their party boy personas, and even though the album didn't do well commercially, it's gone on to become a cult classic, even if the group themselves don't see it that way. Everyone from Chuck D to Madlib have raved about this album, saying how it
That's about
inspired
Madlib.
them. Even Miles Davis is rumored to have loved Paul's Boutique.
Really?
After the sort of commercial failure of this album, the Beastie Boys would get to work on their next one. You see, they had signed a 2-album deal
Probably why, and probably with the lack of promotion, it's probably why they started that Korean Royal album label as well too.
with Capitol. And Paul's Boutique had cost a lot to create, so the boys returned to their roots, picked up instruments again, and created
reason.
Check Your Head, which is going to have to be its own video. The Dust Brothers, on the other hand, kept making music, notably producing
who?
other classics like
can
the
wait.
album Odelay by Beck. And believe it or not, they produced this banger from 1997.
Yup, I did get to hear about that. I did hear about that. That was them. Wow, I did kind of hear about that. Yup, I think I did. I could be wrong, but I think I did hear about that. Not realize. I think I found it like late years later.
You know, now that I listen to it, knowing that the Dust Brothers produced this, all those scratches in there,
Yup.
am I going to have to do a breakdown of Bop by Hanson? That's real. You can look it up. Now it's
explains the
time to
scratching.
hear from
Yup.
you. Earlier this week, when the album of the week was announced, some of you submitted your own stories.
Oh.
So let's hear what you remember,
Okay.
how this album makes you feel,
I think I
and
checked
how
the
you
last
think
one
about it
before
now.
this bar.
Hey, my
what's the
name's
name?
Jake, and the funny thing about Camp Digs is that this is actually my way of introducing myself to albums I've not gone around to, I haven't made time for, or simply weren't even on my radar to begin with. And contrary to what the shirt says, I do indeed dig rap, and part of what's gotten me into it has been digging the greats. So it's kind of apropos that all this comes together with Beastie Boys this week too. Looking Down the Barrel of a Gun is my favorite cut off the album.
Yeah, that joint is tough too. I think about it, here's the thing, I knew about most of the album by singles, but when I got into a Beastie Boy kick for a minute because of the Beastiology and Hell Nest came out. I grabbed Paul's Boutique and then I grabbed the Beastie Boys album. And hearing that, and the first time I heard "Looking for the Barrel of Gun" in a way was on Daria, Dario. Not know it was off their second album. I knew it was Beastie Boys, but I didn't know it was from their second album. That was crazy.
The metalhead in me cannot get enough of
Yeah,
that
it's a
riff, and I'm
metalhead
not
joint.
surprised. Anthrax.
Yeah, if you listen to "Looking Barrel," it's a metalhead dream right there.
Later did a cover of that track.
Oh wow!
What an album.
I'm not surprised.
The next thing we'll be doing is the Campfire live stream on this Saturday. We'll be listening to this full album together, enjoying a food and drink pairing, and having a great time. I grabbed it sideways! Dang it! I'm gonna retake it. We'll see what it's like in the edit. To join, sign up for free at patreon.com/diggingthegreats. I will see you then. I gotta work on my grabs, man.
Alright, cool. I'm gonna try to fit next if I get Chime next week or sometime this week. Maybe we'll check out the tribe one as well too. Though, if I knew it was something like that was the thing, I would definitely do this in order. And so I'm gonna do this, and then I'm going to order the next one that came after this one as well too, which I did have on my playlist. I wanted to check out as well too. Other than that, though, definitely a cool story behind the scenes about Beastie Boys' iconic album Paul's Boutique. Though, from like he broke down the beginning and everything, how he went from Def Jam to this as well too, which was very interesting. It explains like why we had like a couple songs we made it heard that was like almost could have been licensed in Overlay around '88 as well too, including Desperado, which I still to this day will love their original version from Tougher Than Leather, not the damn demo version, not even to try their best to make the remake of the original, the Tougher Than Leather version as well too of it either. I know it is somewhere shelf somewhere as well too. Russell Simmons, Rick Rubin, somebody release it, please, for real, man. Hey, having list, I'll have to watch Tough and Love just to hear the parts of the song as well too, which is one of my favorite part from that movie well, too, when they perform it on TV on stage as well too. Other than that, if you like my reaction to this, like, share, subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's your boy T signing off. One love.